Using curves in lab color mode to alter the color of an object. So here I have my orange car that I want to make be a different color. So to start, I'm going to actually double click on my background layer to unlock it. I'll name this car. And I need to go to another file. I need to find the color that I want to use. So let's select this apple. And so with the object selection tool, I can actually just click here and it's going to select. So this is kind of the AI portion of Photoshop, how they've developed where it will select objects for you. I could also click and drag with this tool kind of around the area, and it would identify where this apple is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy with the Command or Control C, copy this to my clipboard, navigate back to my car, and I'm going to paste it. And when I paste it, it goes to a new layer. Obviously, it's a bit large. So I'm going to use my Command or Control T to transform. And let's try to get this to be a bit smaller here so we can have it visible. This will probably work. Okay, so then check mark or press return to OK this. And we'll name this apple again just to keep ourselves organized. So if I want this vehicle to be the color of the apple, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to lab mode. So lab color mode is just a different way of working in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to image menu and mode. Right now I'm in RGB, red, green, blue, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and K for key color, or normally black. That's for print. We're going to go to lab color. Lab gives us more control of color actually. This is an issue though. If I have more than one layer happening right now, it's going to ask me if I want to merge it. I don't want to merge it. So let's click no to that. So I keep my apple layer and my car layer. So now what I need to do is I'm going to take some color samples. I want to sample the area of the color that I want to use. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here so we can see color a little bit more clear. My info panel happens to be in my dock. If you don't see it, you'll just go under the window menu and look for info, okay? And we're gonna sample up some colors using the color sample tool, and it's right underneath the eyedropper tool. If you can navigate to the eyedropper tool, it's the color sampler tool, okay? And this will let us sample up or target specific colors. Let's take a color sample in the object that I want to use. I'm going to use, this car, and so I'm going to kind of go in the middle area. Let's just click this orange right here. So it might struggle with some of the highlights and shadow areas, but we'll see how this works. Okay, so that's my sample number 1. Sample number 2, we want to make sure that that's correct. Sample number 2 is coming from my top layer here, and I'm going to choose this area. Now before I continue on, I do have my sample size at 11 by 11. Okay, so you can go to a point sample, which is exactly 1 pixel, the color of 1 pixel that you click on. You can do a 3 by 3 average, 5 by 5 average. I'm doing an 11 by 11 average. Okay, so now I have my 2 color samples. I have my car, which happens to be the sample number 1 here in info, and my apple, which is sample number 2. So now we need to select the car. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my apple for a moment, tuck away my info panel. Let's just zoom out just a smidge here. So we want to sample the car, and to do that a couple of different ways. So I could go under my select menu. Oh, we want to make sure we're on the car layer. Making sure I'm on the right layer, select, and I could do a select with the color range. This one's a little bit older method. I mean, it already has kind of an area there, and the fuzziness plays with the selection. I can go out and I can add to, keep adding and growing my selected area. Let's just see if we can get. The problem with this is I sort of miss some highlights sometimes. Click OK, there's my selection. Okay, so that's one method that I can use to select the area. And I could then at this point go back to my quick selection tool and making sure that I'm adding to, I can hold down and add to some areas by by adding more. I'm going to do a Command or Control D to deselect because there's easier ways. Now with AI and you can already see it's happening here, with AI in Photoshop, it kind of realizes what I want. So I can do an object select, and when I'm going over an object here, let's just click and drag around the entire car. There you go. You can see I get the entire car. So it's good except for I don't want the wheels. Okay, so I'm going to deselect this. The other option is I could use my quick select tool and just kind of click and drag in all of these different components, parts of the car, and try to get just the color without, oops, there I got the wheels. We can undo that here in a second. So I'm just clicking and dragging around to get all of these areas. There, I went too far as well. And I can decrease my size of my brush, which sometimes helps too. But if I hold down my Option key here, I get a little minus. It's hard to see, but inside the circle is a minus, and that means I'm taking away this area. And I don't want the tire because that is going to mess up some of our color. Okay, again, I could sit here for a much longer time and make this be perfect. I am not going to do that. I'm just going to give you an idea here of how this works. All right, so shaping that up a little bit. All right, we're going to go with this. So now that I have this area, what we want to do is create a curves adjustment layer. Backtrack. The other thing I could do too is use my select and mask. Select and mask is an option whenever you have a selection tool active. And this allows me to paint in areas as well. Opens a whole new area, a whole new sort of workspace for me to select areas. So I can also do that if I wanted to. I'm just going to click OK because I'm okay with this. Actually, one last thing I do want to get rid of is the window area. And that should be pretty quick. Again, I'm just using the quick selection tool, which does a pretty good job. Not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. Okay, so I used my Alt or Option key to delete these areas from my selection. All right, so now what I need to do after I've defined my color samples and refined my selection is make a curves adjustment layer. And this is where we're going to do the swap of color. So I'm going to go down to my layers panel here and select curves. All right, so you can see I have the car masked out. What I need to do is make sure that I am able to mark sample number 1 in my histogram. So this histogram is basically a graph of the colors being used in the photo. Lab color mode that we're in right now has a lightness, an A chromatic, and a B chromatic channel. So we're gonna have to change in all 3 of those channels. Before we do this though, we have to click on this first icon here because we wanna make sure that we're able to sample the color from the picture and mark it on our curve. So we have to have that one checked. And now I'm going to go over to my image, find my sample number 1, and there's a key combination here I need to press. Depending if you're on a Mac or a PC, it's going to be Command or Control plus the Shift key and click. So that's Command, Control, add the Shift key, and then click right on that color sample. And you can see that now I have a dot marked on my histogram. That's where that color is at. We want to change that color right now, and it's going to change our curve. So from looking at our color sample number 2, I see my color here is 75, -12, and 71. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to steal that color and put it in right here. So we're going to add in the lightness 75. I'm going to go to my A chromatic and we're going to put a -12. You can see it's already starting. We'll turn off the apple in a minute so that won't be a distraction. And B is going to be 71. And there it is. All right, if I do need to make some adjustments, I can slightly by dragging this curve. It will lighten and darken. I'm gonna just bring it just a little bit here to kind of see, and we'll turn off our apple. All right, I can go back to my move tool. So you can see this is what it did, is it changed the color. Now there's some adjustments here that will need to be changed slightly, and I can convert back to RGB if I would like. In order to do that though, I do have to merge these down because when I do a conversion from the lab color mode to RGB, I do lose my adjustment layers. So that's another method of changing color. A little bit more complicated, but it does work.